My name is Austin Davenport. I am 30 years old. I am the CEO and founder of Dawson Technologies. We are a software company. We build custom solutions for various industries, including hospitality, healthcare, logistics, and finance. We are a $2 billion company. I own the patents on every piece of software we have developed. I also own several commercial properties, including the Pines Country Club, where my father and his partners used to play golf every Saturday. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. I am the middle child of 3. My older brother is Mason. My younger sister is Mary. From as far back as I can remember, I was invisible. Not in the dramatic sense where the parents forget your birthday. More in the quiet, everyday sense where your achievements do not matter because someone else needs attention. My father is Thomas Davenport. He is 55 years old. He is a senior partner at Chase, Davenport, and Morrison. It is one of the most prestigious law firms in the state. He is arrogant. He is controlling. He believes that there are only 2 acceptable career paths in life: lawyer or doctor. Anything else is a waste of time. He especially despises entrepreneurs, particularly those in tech or hospitality. He calls them glorified gamblers and people who cannot handle real work. My mother is in Davenport. She is 54 years old. She does not share my father's views on careers. She just wants peace. But her version of peace usually means giving in to whoever makes the most noise. And the person who made the most noise in our house was always Mary. I got straight A's all through school. Every report card, every semester, every year. Straight A's. Did my father notice? Did he care? Not one bit. He was too busy fussing over Mary's dance recitals, Mary's art projects, Mary's anything. I could have cured cancer, and he would have asked me why I was not studying law instead. The first memory I have of feeling invisible was when I was 7. I had won the school spelling bee. I came home with a ribbon and a trophy, excited to show my parents. The trophy was small, maybe 6 inches tall, with a gold figure on top. It was the first thing I had ever won. I was so proud of it. My father was in his study. I knocked on the door, trophy in hand. He looked up, saw the trophy, and said, "That is nice, Austin. Mary's recital is tomorrow. Make sure you are ready." Then he went back to his papers. I stood there for a full minute, holding my trophy, before I realized he was not going to say anything else. I walked to my room, put the trophy on my shelf, and never mentioned the spelling bee again. Mason, my older brother, was the one who looked out for me. He was 2 years older, and even as kids, he could see what was happening. He would stand up for me when our father went too far. He would include me when Mary tried to push me out. He was my shield. Our grandmother, Lillian Dawson, was Grandpa's wife. She passed away when Mason was 12. I was only 10 at the time, but I remember her. She was kind, gentle, and she had this way of making everyone feel special. Grandpa used to tell stories about her all the time. How she would stay up late helping him with his books for his hardware store. How she would cook these massive Sunday dinners for the whole family. How she always had a smile, even when things were tough. I think Grandpa saw a lot of Lillian in me. That is why he always had my back. There was one day that really stands out. I was 10, Mason was 12, and Mary was 8. We were outside playing in the backyard. It was a Saturday afternoon, warm and sunny. Mason and I were throwing a football back and forth. Mary was somewhere else in the yard, doing her own thing. She was picking flowers near the garden, humming to herself. A bee stung her. She screamed, and my mother came running out of the house. "What happened?" my mother demanded, her voice sharp with panic. Mary, crying, pointed at us. They were not watching me. My mother's face twisted. "You two are supposed to be watching your sister. What kind of brothers are you?" Mason tried to explain. "Mom, we were playing football. She was over by the garden." "I do not want to hear it," my mother snapped. "You are both grounded. Go to your rooms." "But Mom," I started. "Now," she shouted. Mason and I looked at each other. We knew there was no point in arguing. We went to our rooms. When my father came home, it got worse. He called us into his study. The study was a dark, wood-paneled room with bookshelves lining the walls and a heavy oak desk in the center. It smelled like leather and old paper. It was the room where all the bad things happened. "Your sister was stung by a bee because you two could not be bothered to watch her," my father said, his voice cold and controlled. "You are her older brothers. It is your responsibility to protect her." "But Dad," I started, "we were playing football." "She was." "I do not want excuses," he cut me off. He pointed to the corner. "Both of you. Now, Mason clenched his fists. That is not fair. Excuse me? My father said, his voice dropping to that dangerous tone. He disciplined us both. Right there, in front of Mary, who was still sniffling and enjoying every second of it. When he was done, he grounded us for 2 weeks on top of it. But before Mason could say anything else, the front door opened. Grampa Dawson walked in. Archie Dawson was my father's father, and he was the only person in the world my father was afraid of. What is going on in here? Grandpa asked, looking at our faces. My father explained the situation, making it sound like Mason and I had been negligent. Grandpa listened, then looked at Mary. Where were you when the bee stung you? Mary sniffled. By the garden. Were your brothers supposed to be watching you? Mary looked at the floor. No. Grandpa turned to my father. Thomas, even if the boys had been watching her, there is no guarantee she would not have been stung. Bees fly. They sting. That is what they do. Cool it. My father's face turned red. Dad, this is nonsense, Grandpa said firmly. And you know it. My father never apologized. But from that day on, I knew that Grandpa was the only person in my corner. As we got older, Mary's behavior got worse. She was the baby, the princess, and she knew it. She could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. If she got a B on a test, it was the teacher's fault. If she got in trouble at school, the other kids were bullying her. If she broke something, it was an accident. The worst incident happened on her 12th birthday. Mason had gotten a car for his 16th birthday. It was not new, but it was nice. Grandpa had helped pay for it. Mary decided that she deserved a car too, even though she was only 12. When she did not get one, she lost it. She screamed. She cried. She threw things. My mother tried to calm her down. Mary, sweetie, you are too young for a car. I hate you. Mary screamed. I hate this family. Then she went to the garage, found a screwdriver, and scratched up every inch of Mason's car. Deep, deliberate scratches, all the way down to the metal. When Mason saw it, he was devastated. He had saved up money from his part-time job to help pay for that car. He had spent hours washing it, waxing it, taking care of it. And now it was destroyed. Grandpa saw it too. He had bought Mary a new bicycle for her birthday. A beautiful purple one with a basket and streamers. When he saw what she had done to Mason's car, he walked straight to where Mary was throwing her tantrum, took the bicycle, and walked out. Grandpa, Mary wailed. That is mine. Not anymore, Grandpa said flatly. My father tried to intervene. Dad, she is just a child. She is a child who needs to learn consequences, Grandpa shot back. You are not doing her any favors by letting her get away with this. If you do not get her help, she is going to end up in jail. My father's face went red. Do not you dare talk about my daughter like that. I will talk about her however I need to, Grandpa said. Someone has to. Then Grandpa did something that shocked everyone. He paid for a lawyer. Mason took our parents to court. The lawyer Grandpa hired was a man named Richard Haywood. He was a pit bull of an attorney, the kind who did not take prisoners. He had been practicing family law for 30 years, and he had a reputation for winning cases that everyone thought were unwinnable. The case went to court. My father, being a senior partner at a prestigious law firm, hired one of his own partners to represent him and my mother. He walked in there with his chest puffed out, confident that the judge would see things his way. He was wrong. Richard Haywood presented the evidence. Photos of the car, before and after. Receipts for the repairs. Testimony from the body shop about the extent of the damage. And then he put Mason on the stand. Mason, Richard said, can you tell the court how you acquired this car? Mason took a deep breath. I saved up money from my part-time job at the grocery store. I worked weekends and summers. It took me almost 2 years to save enough. And how did you take care of this car? I washed it every Saturday morning. I waxed it once a month. I kept it in the garage. I never let anyone eat or drink in it. And what happened on your sister's 12th birthday? Mason's voice was steady. She wanted a car. My parents said no. She went to the garage, found a screwdriver, and scratched up every inch of the car. Deep scratches, all the way down to the metal. How did you feel when you saw the damage? Mason paused. Devastated. It was the first thing I had ever owned that was truly mine. And she destroyed it because she did not get what she wanted. Robert Chase tried to cross-examine Mason. He tried to make it sound like Mason was exaggerating, that the damage was not that bad, that Mary was just a child who did not know what she was doing. Mason, Robert Chase said, is it not true that your sister was only 12 years old at the time? Yes, Mason said. And is it not true that children sometimes make mistakes? This was not a mistake, Mason said. This was deliberate. She knew exactly what she was doing. But she was just a child, Robert Chase repeated. She was old enough to know right from wrong, Mason said. And she was old enough to know that destroying someone else's property is wrong. Richard Haywood stepped forward. Your Honor, I would like to present the body shop's estimate for the repairs. He handed a document to the judge. The judge looked at it, then handed it to Robert Chase. Mr. Chase, the judge said, do you have any questions about this estimate? Robert Chase looked at the document. His face tightened. Your Honor, this estimate seems excessive. Excessive? Richard Haywood said. The entire car needs to be repainted. The scratches go all the way down to the metal. This is not a buff job. This is a full restoration. Your Honor, Robert Chase said, my client's daughter is 12 years old. She made a mistake. A costly mistake, but a mistake nonetheless. A mistake? Richard Haywood said. She took a screwdriver and deliberately scratched every panel on that car. That is not a mistake. That is vandalism. Objection, Robert Chase said. Counsel is characterizing my client's daughter. The facts speak for themselves. Richard Haywood interrupted. Your Honor, I have here photographs of the damage. I would like to submit them as evidence. The judge nodded. Richard Haywood handed over a stack of photos. The judge looked at them, one by one. His expression hardened. Mr. Davenport, the judge said, looking at my father, have you seen these photos? My father stood up. Your Honor, I have. And I maintain that my daughter. Your daughter destroyed your son's property, the judge said. The evidence is clear. The damage was deliberate. The cost of repairs is over $3,000. As her parents, you are responsible. Your Honor, my father started. I have heard enough, the judge said. I am ordering you to pay the full cost of repairs, plus court fees. Case closed. My father's face went white. Your Honor, that is. Case closed, the judge repeated. Court is adjourned. My father was humiliated. He had to write a check for over $3,000, plus the lawyer's fees. My mother was heartbroken. She could not believe that her own son had taken them to court. And Mary? Mary learned nothing. She just found new ways to be terrible. Over the next 2 years, things got worse. Mary figured out that if she misbehaved badly enough, my parents would give her whatever she wanted to make her stop. She would throw tantrums in public, scream at waiters, demand expensive clothes, and my parents would cave every single time. Mason and I would watch in disbelief as our father, the man who disciplined us for the smallest infractions, would buy Mary a new phone or a new laptop just to shut her up. Mason tried to talk to our father about it once. Dad, you cannot keep giving her everything she wants. It is not healthy. My father looked at him like he had just insulted his life's work. Mason, you do not understand. Mary is sensitive. She needs extra attention. Sensitive? Mason said. She scratched up my car with a screwdriver. That was a one-time incident, my father said dismissively. It was not, Mason said. She broke my headphones last week. She tore up my homework. Enough, my father cut him off. Your sister is going through a difficult time. You need to be more understanding. Mason just shook his head and walked away. That was the moment I think he realized our father would never change. When Mason turned 18, he did something I will never forget. He took his college fund, the money our parents had set aside for him, and left. He enrolled in a state school to study law, found an apartment, and moved out. No announcement, no drama. He just packed his bags and went. The night Mason left, he came to my room. Austin, I am going. I looked at him, already knowing what he meant. Where? State school. I am studying law. I felt a lump in my throat. But what about me? Mason put his hand on my shoulder. You will be okay. You are smarter than all of us combined. Just keep your head down, and when you can, leave. Then he was gone. The house was different without Mason. Quieter, but also emptier. Without him there to deflect some of my father's attention, I became the sole target. Every dinner was a lecture about how I needed to be a lawyer or a doctor. Every conversation was about my future, which my father had already planned for me. I knew I had to get out. So the day after Mason left, I went to Grandpa's house. He lived about 20 minutes away, in a cozy ranch-style house that smelled like pipe tobacco and old books. Grandpa, I said, standing on his porch, can I move in with you? He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I was wondering when you would ask. I moved in that weekend. My father was furious. He called Grandpa and yelled at him for an hour. My mother cried. Mary did not care. She was too busy planning her next tantrum. But Mason did not just leave the house. He left our family. He stopped calling our parents. He stopped coming to holidays. He stopped acknowledging our parents' existence. But he did not abandon me. We stayed close. We texted every week. We talked on the phone every Sunday night. He would tell me about law school, about the cases he was studying, about the professors who challenged him. I would tell him about Dad, about Mary, about how things were getting worse at home. He was still my shield, even from a distance. I later learned that Mason had sent our parents a letter the day after he left. A formal, typed letter. Aunt Patricia read it to me years later. It said, "To Thomas and in Davenport, I am writing this letter to inform you that I am severing all contact with you both, effective immediately. I have spent 18 years in a household where abuse was disguised as discipline, where favoritism was disguised as love, and where silence was disguised as peace. I am done being silent. Thomas, you are an abuser. You hid behind your title, your firm, and your reputation, but at home you were nothing more than a bully with a belt and a study full of awards you did not deserve. You disciplined Austin and me for things that were not our fault. You punished us for being children, and then you grounded us on top of it, as if the pain was not enough. You called it teaching us discipline. It was not discipline. It was control. It was cruelty, and you knew it. And you watched it happen. Every single time. You stood there and you let him do it. You told yourself it was not your place to interfere. You told yourself that keeping the peace was more important than protecting your own sons. You were wrong. Your silence was not neutral. It was complicity. You chose him over us, every single day, and you knew it. You gave Mary everything and gave Austin and me nothing. You bought her phones when she destroyed our property. You bought her laptops when she screamed. You rewarded her for being terrible and punished us for existing. And Austin is still there, trapped in that house with you. And I know you will do the same thing to him when he is old enough to have his own dreams. Do not do to him what you did to me. And the car. You let Mary destroy my car with a screwdriver, and you blamed me. You made me apologize. You made me pay. And when Grandpa stood up and told you the truth, you looked him in the eye and told him not to talk about your daughter that way. Your daughter, not your son, not your sons. Your daughter. That is all we ever were to you. Afterthoughts. I want you to know that I am leaving. I am taking my college fund, and I am going to build a life without you in it. I will not call. I will not visit. I will not pretend that what happened in that house was normal, because it was not. It was wrong. And the two people who were supposed to protect us were the ones who hurt us the most. Austin is still there. He is younger, and he does not have the means to leave yet. If you hurt him the way you hurt me, I will find out. And I will make sure the world knows what kind of parents you are. Do not respond to this letter. I will not read it. Mason Davenport. My mother read the letter twice, then sat on the kitchen floor and cried for an hour. My father read it once, crumpled it up, and threw it in the trash. Neither of them responded. Neither of them denied a single word in it. Mason went to law school. He used his college fund to pay for it, and he threw himself into his studies. He was focused, disciplined, and determined to prove that he could succeed on his own terms. He joined the law review, won a moot court competition, and graduated in the top 10% of his class. After law school, Mason got a job at a mid-sized firm. He worked his way up, partner by partner, case by case. He was good, really good. Within 5 years, he had his own practice. He specialized in corporate law, and he had a reputation for being fair but tough. He never took a case he did not believe in, and he never lost a case he did take. But he still did not talk to our parents. Every few months, my mother would call him, begging him to come home. He would listen politely, then say, "Mom, I love you, but I cannot be around Dad. Not until he changes." Then he would hang up. My father never called. He was too proud. He would rather lose his son than admit he was wrong. Living with Grandpa was the best thing that ever happened to me. He did not care about lawyers or doctors. He cared about what kind of person I was. He taught me how to fix things around the house. He taught me how to cook. He taught me how to think for myself. "You are going to do great things, Austin," he would say. "Not because of what you do for a living, but because of who you are." He would also tell me stories about Grandma Lillian, about how she used to stay up late helping him with his books for his hardware store, about how she would cook these massive Sunday dinners for the whole family, even when money was tight, about how she always had a smile, even when things were tough. "She believed in me when no one else did," Grandpa would say. "That is why I believe in you." I remember one night, specifically. I was 16. Grandpa and I were sitting on the porch, watching the sun set. He was smoking his pipe, and I was drinking a glass of lemonade. He looked at me and said, "Austin, do you know why I took you in? Because you felt sorry for me?" I said, "No," he said, "because I saw something in you. The same thing I saw in Lillian. You have a good heart, Austin. You care about people. You care about doing the right thing. That is rare. Do not let anyone take that from you." "I won't," I said. "I mean it," he said. "Your father, he does not see it. He is too blinded by his own ego. But I see it. And Lillian would have seen it too. When I graduated high school, my father made one last attempt to control my life. He called me at Grandpa's house and told me to come over. He said we needed to talk. His voice had that edge to it, the one that meant he had already made up his mind about something. I drove over. Grandpa came with me. He did not say much on the ride. He just sat there, smoking his pipe, staring out the window. But I could tell he already knew what this was about. He was waiting in his study, the same room where I had been grounded for things that were not my fault. When he saw Grandpa walk in behind me, his face tightened. He had not expected that. "Austin, I have decided to release your college fund to you," he said, as if he were doing me a favor. "But only if you choose a proper career, law or medicine." I looked at him. "And if I do not? Then the money stays in the account." I did not know what to say. I stood there, feeling trapped, knowing that my future was being held hostage by a man who could not see past his own ego. Then Grandpa stepped forward. 70% of that college fund is my money," he said. "I put it there, not you. And if you think you can use it as a leash, you have another thing coming." My father tried to argue. "Dad, this is between me and my son." "No," Grandpa said, his voice like steel. "This is between you and the truth. 70% of that money is mine. I put it in there for Austin, not for you to use as a leash." There was a long silence. Then my father said, "Fine. The money is his." The next day, the money was in my account. My father did not say a word to me about it. He did not have to. I knew that Grandpa had won that round. I took that money and went to a state school for computer programming. I was good at it. Really good. I was at the top of my class, acing every exam, building programs that even my professors could not figure out. After my first year, I applied to MIT on a whim. I got in. Full ride. MIT was a different world. The students were brilliant, the professors were demanding, and the workload was relentless. But I thrived. I threw myself into everything. Algorithms, data structures, machine learning, artificial intelligence. I was a sponge, soaking up everything I could. I made friends, something I had never really had before. I joined study groups, went to hackathons, stayed up all night coding with people who were just as passionate as I was. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. I also discovered something about myself. I was a leader. In group projects, people naturally looked to me for direction. I could see the big picture, break down complex problems, and motivate people to do their best work. My professors noticed. I graduated in 3 years instead of 4 at the top of my class. My professors told me I could have my pick of jobs at any tech company in the world. I did not want a job. I wanted to build something. One of my professors, Dr. Chen, pulled me aside after graduation. "Austin," she said, "you have a gift. You do not just understand the code. You understand the people behind it. That is rare." I did not know what to say. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. "If you ever decide to start your own company," she continued, "I would invest in it." I laughed. "I am just starting out." "Not for long," she said. "And when you are ready, call me." I kept her card. When I graduated from MIT, I had about $75,000 left from my college fund. I took that money and started Dawson Technologies. The first year was brutal. I worked out of a tiny apartment, coding 18 hours a day, surviving on ramen and coffee. I pitched to investors who laughed at me. I submitted proposals that got rejected. I failed and failed and failed again. I lost my first client because I could not deliver on time. I lost my second client because my software had bugs. I lost my third client because they went with a bigger company. Each loss was a punch to the gut. Each rejection made me question whether I was cut out for this. But I kept going. I learned from my mistakes. I fixed the bugs. I improved my pitch. I worked harder. I hired my first employee, a guy named Marcus who was a better coder than I was. Then I hired another and another. We got a real office, a small one, but it was ours. We worked day and night, building software that solved real problems. 3 years after graduation, I called Dr. Chen. She invested $200,000 in Dawson Technologies. It was the first real investment I ever got. Now, I need to tell you about Josh. Josh Lucas is my brother-in-law. He married my sister Mary when she was 21, and he was in medical school. Mary had convinced Josh that I was a freeloader, living off Grampa's generosity. The truth was, I was running a successful company, but Mary did not care about the truth. The first time I met Josh was at my parents' house. I was 22, and I had my own place. I had stopped by to drop off some paperwork for my mother. When I walked in, Josh was already there. He was a tall guy, with a smug look on his face. "So you are Austin," he said. "The freeloader." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Mary told me about you," Josh continued. "Living off your grandfather. Cannot even hold a real job." I looked at Mary. She was smiling. That is when I realized she had been telling Josh lies about me for months. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "The truth," she said sweetly. "That you are a burden on Grandpa." That is when I lost it. "The truth?" I said, my voice rising. "The truth is that you are the one living off this family, Mary. You do not have a job. You do not contribute anything. You just take, and take, and take." Mary's face went red. "That is not. The truth," I cut her off, "is that I just graduated from MIT. I am starting my own company. I have my own place. And you are living in Mom and Dad's house with your boyfriend, rent-free." Josh stepped forward. "You know what your problem is, Austin? You are a coward. You could not hack it as a lawyer or a doctor, so you pretend to be a businessman." Then he threw a punch. I ducked, and I punched him right in the mouth. 4 of his permanent teeth came out. I stood over him and said, "Let me tell you something, Josh. It is not I who is living in his parents' house. It is you and Mary." The police were called. But here is the thing. Josh had thrown the first punch. I had witnesses. He was arrested, not me. My father, of course, took Josh's side. "You are not welcome here anymore," he told me. "Do not come back." Grandpa, on the other hand, made his position clear to my father. "You and your wife are not welcome in my house until you apologize to Austin," he said. My father never apologized. But that was fine. I did not need him. So I did not. For the next 4 years, I did not call. I did not visit. I focused on my company. Those 4 years were some of the best and hardest of my life. Dawson Technologies was growing fast, but growing fast means growing pains. We moved into a bigger office, hired more people, and suddenly I was managing 50 employees instead of coding in my apartment. I hated it at first. I wanted to build things, not manage people. But I learned. I read books on leadership. I took courses. I hired a coach. I made mistakes, and I learned from them. Our first big break came when a hotel chain called us. They had heard about a booking system we had built for a small motel. They wanted something similar, but bigger. Much bigger. I spent 3 weeks coding the proposal. I stayed up for 48 hours straight to finish the demo. I pitched it to their board of directors. They loved it. They signed a 5-year contract worth $2 million. That contract changed everything. It gave us credibility. It gave us cash flow. It gave us momentum. Within a year, we had 10 more clients. Within 2 years, we had over 100 employees. Within 3 years, we were worth $10 million. It was during those 4 years that I met Danielle. She was a regular at the coffee shop I went to every morning. I had been going there for months, same time every day, 6 in the morning, before the morning rush. I would order a black coffee, sit in the corner booth, and code for an hour before heading to the office. She was always there too, sitting at the table by the window, reading a book or working on her laptop. I noticed her right away. She had this auburn hair that caught the light, and these green eyes that seemed to see right through you. But I was shy, and I was focused on my company, so I never said anything. One morning, I was in line, and she was behind me. I ordered my coffee, and when I reached for my wallet, it was not there. I had left it at the office. I started to apologize, but Danielle stepped forward and said, "I have got it." I turned. "What?" "Your coffee," she said, smiling. "I have got it. You can pay me back tomorrow." I was stunned. "You do not have to do that." "I know," she said, "but I have seen you in here every morning for the past 6 months. You are always alone, always coding. You look like you could use a friend." I laughed. "Is it that obvious?" "Very," she said, handing me my coffee. "I am Danielle." "Austin," I said, shaking her hand. We sat together that morning. She told me she was a graphic designer, working for a marketing firm downtown. She was smart, funny, and she had this way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I told her about Dawson Technologies, about the struggles, about the wins and losses. She did not judge. She just listened. The next morning, I bought her coffee. And the morning after that, and the morning after that. We became a routine. Every morning, 6 o'clock, same corner booth. We talked about everything. Her family, my family. Her dreams, my dreams. She told me about growing up in a small town in Oregon, about her parents who were teachers, about her brother who was in the military. I told her about Grandpa, about Mason, about the family that never wanted me to succeed. You are not a failure, she said one morning, after I had told her about my father's constant disappointment. You are the opposite of a failure. You built something from nothing. That takes courage. No one had ever said that to me before. I had always been the disappointment, the one who was not good enough. But Danielle saw something different. She saw someone who was trying, who was fighting, who was refusing to give up. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. I was nervous, more nervous than I had ever been pitching to investors. But Danielle made it easy. She laughed at my jokes, asked about my work, and told me about her latest design project. At the end of the night, I walked her to her car. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "I had a really good time, Austin." "Me too," I said. "Can we do this again?" She smiled. "I thought you would never ask." We dated for 2 years. 2 years of morning coffees, weekend hikes, late-night phone calls. She met Grandpa, and he loved her. "She is a keeper," he told me. "Do not let her go." She met Mason, and they got along immediately. Mason was impressed by her intelligence and her kindness. "You found a good one, Austin," he said. "Hold on to her." She never met my parents. I did not want to subject her to that. She understood. She never pushed. I proposed to her on a Tuesday morning at our corner booth in the coffee shop. I had hidden the ring in my coffee cup under a napkin. When she sat down, I said, "Danielle, I have a question for you." She looked at me, curious. "What is it?" I pulled out the ring. "Will you marry me?" She stared at the ring, then at me, then back at the ring. "Are you serious?" "I have never been more serious about anything in my life," I said. She started crying. Happy tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes, yes." We got married 6 months later, in a small ceremony at Grandpa's house. Mason was my best man. Grandpa walked me down the aisle, since my father was not invited. It was the happiest day of my life. I bought my first property when I was 26. It was a small office building downtown. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I remember standing in the empty lobby, looking around, and thinking, I built this. It was the first time I had ever felt proud of myself. Over the next few years, I kept buying properties. A warehouse here, a strip mall there. I was not just building software anymore. I was building an empire. Danielle was my rock during those years. She kept me grounded. When I would come home exhausted, frustrated, ready to quit, she would listen. She would let me vent. And then she would say, "You are not a quitter, Austin. You never have been. Go back and figure it out." She was right. I always did. We also built a life together. We bought our first house, a small 3-bedroom in the suburbs. It was not much, but it was ours. We painted the walls, planted a garden, adopted a dog we named Grandpa. Danielle laughed at that. "You named the dog after your grandfather?" She said. "He is loyal, stubborn, and he does not take nonsense from anyone," I said. "Seems fitting." She laughed. "Fair enough." Grampa Dawson loved Danielle. He would come over for dinner every Sunday. He would sit at the table, tell stories about Grandma Lillian, and spoil the dog. Danielle would cook, and Grandpa would eat 3 helpings and say it was the best meal he had ever had. Every single time. "She is good for you," Grandpa told me one night, after Danielle had gone to bed. "Do not mess this up." "I will not," I said. "I mean it," he said. "You found someone who loves you for who you are, not what you can give her. That is rare. Hold on to it." I held on to it. Over the next few years, Dawson Technologies grew into a $2 billion empire. We expanded into healthcare, logistics, and finance. We developed a patient management system that was adopted by over 200 hospitals. We built a logistics platform that saved shipping companies millions of dollars. We created a financial modeling tool that became the industry standard. I also kept buying properties. A shopping center in the suburbs. A warehouse district downtown. A resort in the mountains. And then, one day, I heard that the Pines Country Club was for sale. It was a prestigious club, the kind of place where the old money played golf and talked business. My father was a member. His partners were members. Josh was a member, and that was exactly why I wanted it. I bought it. I did not tell anyone. I just bought it. I renovated it and turned it into one of the most exclusive clubs in the state. I waited 6 months before I made my move. I wanted the renovations finished. I wanted everything perfect, and I wanted them to feel comfortable, to feel safe, to think that nothing had changed. The confrontation happened on a cool evening in September. I had stopped by the Pines to sign some paperwork for upcoming renovations. The club was quiet that evening, just a few members lingering in the bar after a round of golf. I walked through the lobby, past the grand staircase, past the portraits of past presidents, and into Stephen's office. Stephen Hillard had been the manager of the Pines for 15 years. He was a good man, professional, loyal. He had worked for the previous owners, and when I bought the club, I kept him on. He was grateful for that. He told me once that he had been worried about losing his job, that he had a family to feed, that he did not know what he would do if the new owner cleaned house. I told him that I did not buy the club to fire people. I bought it to make it better. He respected that. I knew my father came to the Pines every Saturday. I knew Josh came with him sometimes. I had Stephen send me the tea times. That Saturday, I made sure to be there. We were sitting in his office, going over the renovation plans, when I heard a familiar voice in the lobby. What is he doing here? I looked at Stephen. He looked at me. We both knew that voice. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and walked out of the office. I had been waiting for this. My father was standing in the middle of the lobby, his face red with fury. He was with 2 of his partners from the law firm and Josh. They had just come from the golf course. They were still in their golf clothes. "Austin," my father said, his voice shaking with anger, "you have no business being in this club." I smiled. "Actually, Dad, I have every business being here. More than you realize. I am the leader of the Membership and Rules Committee," my father said, his voice rising. "And I am permanently banning you from this property." I laughed. "You do not have the authority to ban me. This is my club," my father said. "I have been a member here for 20 years. I have been on the board for 10. I have more authority here than you will ever have. Is that right?" I said. "Yes," my father said. "And as the leader of the Membership and Rules Committee, I am revoking your membership, effective immediately." "Dad," I said, "I do not have a membership." My father blinked. "What?" "I do not have a membership," I repeated. "I do not need one. Owners do not need memberships." "What are you talking about?" My father said. "I will have you thrown out," he snapped. He turned to Stephen, who had followed me out of the office. "Stephen, call the police. Have him trespassed." Stephen looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Davenport, I need to inform you that Mr. Austin Davenport owns this property." My father blinked. "What?" "Austin Davenport is the owner of the Pines Country Club," Stephen repeated. "Even as a member of the committee, you do not have the authority to force anyone to leave." My father's face went from red to white. "That is impossible. I bought this club specifically because you were a member here," I said. "You spent 20 years telling me I would never amount to anything. You spent 20 years playing golf with your buddies in a club that I now own. Every Saturday, you sat in that bar and talked about how proud you were of your partners, your clients, your life. Not once did you mention me. And now you are standing in my building, on my property, and you do not even know it." My father stared at me like he did not know who I was. His partners stepped back. Josh looked like he wanted to disappear. "Stephen, you will be fired before the end of the week," my father said, his voice low and dangerous. "I do not think so," Stephen said calmly. "Mr. Davenport is my employer, not you." Security arrived. They did not come for me. They went to my father. "Sir, I am going to have to ask you to leave." My father sputtered. "You cannot. I am a senior partner at." "Sir," the security guard repeated, "please leave the property. You will be informed when you can return." My father was escorted out. As he passed me, he whispered, "You will regret this." I did not regret it. I revoked his membership. And Josh's too. I sent them letters, formal letters, informing them that their memberships had been revoked and that they were no longer welcome at the Pines. After that, everyone started calling. My mother called, begging me to forgive my father. I said no to all of them. My mother called me 3 times a week for a month. Each time, she would cry. Each time, she would beg. Each time, I would say no. "Austin, please," she said one night. "Your father is devastated. He has not been the same since the club incident. He barely eats. He barely sleeps. He just sits in his study, staring at the wall." "Good," I said. He is your father, she said. He stopped being my father a long time ago, I said. She cried harder. That is not fair. No, I said. What is not fair is that you and Dad treated me like I was nothing for my entire life. What is not fair is that you let Mary get away with everything while I was punished for existing. What is not fair is that I had to build my own family because the one I was born into did not want me. She did not have an answer for that. My father's partners called too. They wanted me to reinstate my father's and Josh's memberships. Morrison threatened to sue me on their behalf. I told him to go ahead. He did not. Josh called once. He wanted me to give him access to the club's medical facilities. He said something about needing a quiet place to study for his medical boards. I told him that he was not welcome at the Pines, and that if he called again, I would have a restraining order filed against him. He did not call again. Even some of my father's clients called, trying to smooth things over. They said things like, family is important, and you should forgive and forget. I told them that they were welcome to their opinions, but that my relationship with my father was none of their business. They stopped calling after that. Then my father showed up at my office. It was a Tuesday morning. I was in my office on the 14th floor, going over quarterly projections with my CFO, a woman named Patricia Reeves. We were mid-conversation when my assistant, Karen, knocked on the door. She looked uncomfortable. Mr. Davenport, she said, your father is here. He does not have an appointment. He is in the lobby. He is insisting on seeing you. Patricia looked at me. I looked at her. I could see the concern on her face. She knew the story. Everyone at Dawson Technologies knew the story. I had never hidden where I came from. Send him up, I said. Are you sure? Patricia asked. I nodded. Give us 5 minutes. Patricia gathered her files and left. Karen stepped aside, and my father walked in. He looked smaller than I remembered. His suit was wrinkled. His hair was disheveled. He had dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. But his jaw was set, and his eyes were hard. He was not here to make peace. He looked around my office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. A mahogany desk. Awards on the shelves. Framed patents on the walls. A flat screen showing our stock price, which was up 3% that morning. He took it all in, and I could see something flicker across his face. Not pride. Resentment. He did not sit down. He walked straight to my desk and put both hands on it. You are going to reverse your decision about the Pines, he said. You are going to reinstate my membership and Josh's membership. And you are going to send a formal apology to the club board. I stood up so fast my chair shot back and hit the wall. Get out. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out of my office. Now. Austin. He used that voice. The voice from when I was 7. The voice that meant I was in trouble. The voice that meant pain was coming. He came around the desk, stepping into my space, leaning over me the way he used to when I was a kid, and he wanted me to flinch. He was close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath. His jaw was tight. His hands were fists at his sides. He was doing what he had always done, trying to make me small. But I was not small anymore. I was taller than him, broader than him. I stepped forward, closing the distance between us until we were face to face. I looked down at him. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. You are going to leave, I said, my voice low and even. And you are not going to come back. He did not move. For a second, I saw the old Thomas. The man who could make a room go silent with a look. The man who disciplined us and then grounded us on top of it. The man who ruled our house with fear. Then he blinked. His eyes darted to mine, and I saw something I had never seen in them before. He was afraid. Of me. He stepped back. One step. Then another. His hand went to the desk behind him for balance. You are going to fix this, he said, but his voice had lost its edge. You have embarrassed me in front of my partners, my colleagues, and my friends. I slammed my hand on the desk. You embarrassed me? You stood in that lobby and tried to ban me from my own property. You told security to have me trespassed from my own building. And you are standing here telling me I embarrassed you? He stepped back again. He was against the desk now, and I was still coming. I was pointing at him. My hand was shaking. I could feel my pulse in my temples. You want to talk about embarrassment? I said. I was 7 years old. I won a spelling bee. I came home with a trophy. And you looked at me and said, Mary's recital is tomorrow. That is what you said to me. Not congratulations. Not I am proud of you. Mary's recital is tomorrow. His face went white. That was 23 years ago. I do not care, I said. I remember every single day. Every single one. Mason's car. My college fund. The fight with Josh. You choosing her over me. Over and over and over. And you have the audacity to walk into my office and demand anything from me? You broke this family, I said. Not me. You. You let her destroy Mason's car and blamed us. You let her scream and cry and break everything, and you bought her a new phone to shut her up. You told me my dreams were a waste of time. You told me I would fail. You told me I was nothing. I leaned across him. And now you are standing in the middle of everything you told me would never exist. And you are demanding that I fix it? He said nothing. His mouth was open, but nothing came out. His back was against the desk. He could not go any further. He looked trapped. He looked small. He looked like the man he had always been, only without the power he used to have. Get out of my office, I said. And if you ever come here again, I will have you removed. You remember how that goes. He stared at me. I stared back. Neither of us spoke. I was still standing over him. I did not step back. I did not give him room. I wanted him to feel what it was like, what I had felt for 23 years. Then he straightened his tie, a nervous habit I remembered from childhood. He turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped. He did not turn around. Your mother wants you to call her, he said. My mother already calls me, I said. Every few months. I always say no. Because of you. He stood there. His shoulders dropped. For a moment, he looked like he was going to say something. Anything. An apology. An explanation. A single word that might have changed everything. He did not. He walked out. I stood at my window and watched him cross the parking lot. He walked to his car, a black sedan he had driven for years. He sat in the driver's seat for a long time before he started the engine. Then he drove away. Karen knocked again. Mr. Davenport, are you all right? I am fine, I said. Get Patricia back in here. We have work to do. The next few months were good. Dawson Technologies continued to grow. Danielle and I talked about having kids, about building a life together. We were happy. But then, on year 8, Grampa Dawson passed away. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in my office, going over quarterly reports, when my phone rang. It was the hospital. Grampa had been admitted the night before with chest pains. I dropped everything and drove there. I sat by his bed every day after that, telling him about the company, about Danielle, about the life I was building. He would smile and say, I am proud of you, son. The night he died, I was there. I was holding his hand. The room was quiet, except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. The nurses had dimmed the lights. It was just the two of us. He looked at me, his eyes tired but clear, and said, Austin, you are going to do great things. You already have. I learned from the best, I said. He smiled. Take care of Danielle. Take care of your family. And do not let anyone tell you you are not good enough. I won't, I said. One more thing, he said, his voice barely a whisper. The house. I left it to you. Take care of it. It was your grandmother's favorite place. I will, I said. I promise. He closed his eyes. The heart monitor slowed. And then it stopped. I sat there for a long time, holding his hand, crying. The nurses came in, and they were kind. They gave me time. They let me say goodbye. They did not rush me. They understood. When I finally left the hospital, it was 3 in the morning. The parking lot was empty. The sky was clear. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Grampa was gone. The only person who had ever truly believed in me was gone. I drove home. Danielle was waiting up for me. She took one look at my face and knew. She held me while I cried. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She was just there. The funeral was a week later. Mason came. He had driven 6 hours to be there. We stood together at the graveside, two brothers who had been through the same hell, saying goodbye to the only person who had ever truly loved us. My parents came too. My father looked older, smaller. My mother was crying. Mary was there with Josh, looking uncomfortable. She did not say a word to me. She did not even look at me. I gave the eulogy. I talked about Grampa's kindness, his wisdom, his unwavering support. I talked about how he had taken me in when no one else wanted me. I talked about the lessons he taught me, the stories he told, the love he gave. I talked about Grandma Lillian and how Grampa had never stopped loving her, even after she was gone. When I was done, Mason hugged me. That was beautiful, he said. He would have loved it. I know, I said. After the funeral, the lawyer read the will. Grampa left almost everything to me. His house, his savings, his investments. The house, the one I had grown up in after Mason left, was now mine. But there was a problem. In the days after Grampa's death, While the family was grieving and the lawyers were preparing to read the will, Mary and Josh had moved into Grandpa's house. They did not ask permission. They did not wait for the will to be read. They just moved in like they owned the place. I found out on a Wednesday. I drove over to the house to pick up some of Grandpa's things, his old books, the pipe he used to smoke on the porch. When I pulled into the driveway, there was a car I did not recognize parked out front. Josh's car. I walked up to the front door. It was unlocked. I walked in. Mary was sitting on Grandpa's couch, her feet up on the coffee table, watching television. Josh was in the kitchen, making a sandwich. Neither of them looked up when I walked in. "What are you two doing here?" I said. Mary looked at me like I had interrupted her afternoon. "We live here now." "You do not live here," I said. "This is Grandpa's house. His will has not even been read yet." "Grandpa would have wanted us to stay," Mary said, turning back to the television. "We were his family." "You were his burden," I said. "Not his family." Josh stepped out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Look, Austin, I know you are upset, but Mary and I need a place to stay. The apartment lease ran out. We did not have anywhere else to go." "Then you should have called Mom and Dad," I said. "They have a house." "Mom and Dad's house is too small," Mary said from the couch, not even looking at me. "Besides, this house has more room." I looked around. There were dishes in the sink, clothes piled on the chair by the door, Josh's shoes thrown in the corner, a glass ring on the coffee table where someone had set down a drink without a coaster. They had been here for days, and they had already started destroying the place. "You have 30 days, I said. "Be out in 30 days, or I will take you to court." Mary finally looked at me. She laughed. "You would not do that." "Try me," I said. I gave them 30 days to move out. They did not. They ignored the letter. They ignored the second letter. They ignored the third. So I took them to court. My father, of course, got his partner Chase to represent Mary and Josh. Chase was a tall man with silver hair and a booming voice. He had been practicing law for 30 years, and he was good at what he did. I brought in Reginald Walker. Reginald was 60 years old, and he had been my personal and corporate attorney since I started Dawson Technologies. He was the best lawyer I had ever met, and he was ruthless. He had a reputation for never losing and for destroying witnesses on the stand. I had seen him do it. I had seen grown men cry under his cross-examination. He was exactly what I needed. The case went to probate court. It lasted 3 days. On the first day, Chase made his opening argument. "Your Honor," Chase said, "my clients are a young married couple who were taken in by their grandfather during a time of need. Mr. Dawson provided them shelter because he cared about them. He would have wanted them to stay in his home. Evicting them now, in their time of grief, would be a cruel and unjust act." Chase was smooth. He had a way of making everything sound reasonable, even when it was not. He presented the will, which he argued was ambiguous. He brought in character witnesses, neighbors who said Mary and Grandpa were close. He painted me as the villain, the rich nephew who was throwing his family out on the street. Then Chase called Mary to the stand. He asked her gentle questions, ones that made her sound like a devoted granddaughter rather than a freeloader. "Mrs. Lucas," Chase said, "can you tell the court what your relationship with your grandfather was like?" Mary dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "Grandpa and I were close. I visited him every week. I cooked for him. I cleaned for him. I made sure he took his medication." Chase nodded. "And when he became ill, you were the one who stepped in to take care of him." "Yes," Mary said. "I was the only one who was there." Chase turned to the judge. "Your Honor, my clients have nowhere to go. They have been living in this house for months. They have established residency. Throwing them out on the street would be inhumane." But Chase did not know what Reginald had prepared. Reginald presented the will, which was clear: the house was mine. He presented evidence that Mary and Josh had moved into the house before the body was even cold, that they had never contributed anything to Grandpa's care, that they had damaged the property. Then Reginald cross-examined Mary. She repeated the same story she had told Chase. She cried. She talked about how she had been staying with Grandpa, how she had helped take care of him, how she had nowhere else to go. It was a good performance, almost convincing. The problem was, none of it was true. "Mrs. Lucas," Reginald said, standing up slowly, walking toward the witness box, "you just told this court that you cooked for your grandfather, cleaned for him, and made sure he took his medication. Is that correct?" "Yes," Mary said, dabbing her eyes. "I did everything for him." "Everything," Reginald repeated. He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I would like to submit a receipt from a home care service called Comfort Keepers. Grandpa hired them 8 months before he passed. He was paying them $1,200 a month to cook, clean, and manage his medication. They have a signed contract, timesheets, and logs of every visit. He handed the documents to the judge. Mrs. Lucas, Reginald said, "Were you aware that your grandfather was paying someone else to do the exact things you just claimed you were doing?" Mary's face went pale. "I did not know about that." "You did not know?" Reginald said. "Interesting. Because Comfort Keepers has records showing that they visited your grandfather's home 5 days a week. On those days, they noted that no one else was present in the house." "Where were you on those days, Mrs. Lucas?" Mary stammered. "I was out running errands." "Running errands," Reginald said. He pulled out another document. "I also have here credit card statements from the 6 months before Mr. Dawson's passing. Yours and your husband's. They show regular charges at restaurants, movie theaters, shopping malls, and a weekend trip to Cancun. All on days when Comfort Keepers was at the house. Can you explain how you were taking care of your grandfather while you were in Mexico?" The courtroom murmured. "And one more thing," Reginald continued. "I also have here 3 noise complaints filed by Grampa Dawson's neighbors in the weeks since Mrs. Lucas and her husband moved in. Loud parties at 2 in the morning. Music blasting. Arguments that could be heard through the walls. There is also a complaint about a broken window that was never repaired and photos of property damage taken by the neighbors." He held up a stack of photos. "Holes in the walls. Stained carpets. A door off its hinges. And this," Reginald said, holding up a single sheet of paper, "is a letter from Grampa Dawson's attorney, drafted 2 months before he passed. In it, he instructed his attorney to begin the process of updating his will. Specifically, he wanted to ensure that Mary and Josh would have no claim to his property. He had already seen how his daughter treated the family. He knew what kind of people they were. He was trying to protect his grandson from them." Mary did not have an answer. She sat there, staring at the letter, her face white as a sheet. On the second day, Josh took the stand. He talked about his job at the hospital, about how he was on call 24/7, about how he needed a stable place to live. He was calm, collected, professional. Reginald destroyed him. He pulled out records showing that Josh had been fired from the hospital 6 months earlier. He had been drinking on the job. He had been suspended, then terminated. He was unemployed, and he had been lying about it. "Dr. Lucas," Reginald said, "you just testified that you are an ER doctor at Sisters of Mercy Hospital. Is that correct?" "Yes," Josh said. "Then can you explain why Sisters of Mercy has no record of your employment for the past 6 months?" Josh's face went white. "I have been on leave." "On leave," Reginald repeated. "Is that what they call it when you are fired for showing up drunk to the emergency room?" The courtroom went silent. Josh did not say a word. On the 3rd day, the judge ruled in my favor. Mary and Josh were to be removed from the property within 3 days. My mother called me that night. "Austin, please," she begged. "They have nowhere to go. Can you let them stay?" "No," I said. "But they are family," she said, her voice breaking. "So am I said. "But none of you ever treated me like it." I hung up. Mary and Josh moved out. They had 3 days, and they used every one of them. On the last day, I drove by the house. There was a moving truck in the driveway. Mary was standing on the porch, watching the movers carry boxes. She looked at me. I looked at her. Neither of us said a word. I kept the house. I had promised Grandpa I would take care of it, and I meant it. I had the property cleaned, repaired, and restored to the way it looked when Grandpa was alive. I fixed the holes in the walls. I replaced the broken windows. I had the carpets cleaned and the door repaired. It took weeks, but when I was done, the house looked like Grandpa was still living there. I walked through every room, running my hand along the walls, remembering the nights we spent on the porch, the stories he told, the lessons he taught me. Danielle and I moved in the following month. She loved the house immediately. She said it felt like home, like it had been waiting for us. The dog took to it right away, too. He ran through the hallways, barking, sniffing every corner, claiming every room as his own. Danielle laughed and said the dog had better instincts than both of us. We rented out our old place in the suburbs. A nice young couple with a baby took it. Good tenants. Quiet. They paid on time. My father retired from his law firm shortly after. I heard through Mason that his partners had lost confidence in him. The country club incident had ended up in the local news, and the office confrontation had gotten back to the firm. The embarrassment brought on the firm was too much for his partners to tolerate. He and my mother moved to a smaller house in a different town. We do not talk. My mother calls me every few months, usually around the holidays. She begs me to come visit, to reconcile with my father. I always say no. She cries. I hang up. I heard through Mason that my father has not been doing well. He lost weight. He stopped playing golf. He does not go out much anymore. He sits in his study, alone, surrounded by his law books and his awards. He does not talk about me. He does not mention my name. It is like I do not exist. Part of me feels sorry for him. A small part. The part that remembers being 7 years old, holding a trophy, hoping for a word of praise that never came. But most of me does not feel anything. He made his choices. I made mine. Mason and I are close. He is a successful lawyer, just like our father wanted him to be, but on his own terms. He runs his own firm, and he is happy. He lives alone. He and my father still do not talk much. Mason never forgave him for the favoritism, and honestly, I do not blame him. Mary and Josh's marriage fell apart shortly after the probate case. Josh spiraled. He started drinking more, lost another job, and ended up in rehab. Mary had nowhere to go. My mother refused to let her move back in. She said she had enabled Mary for too long, and she was done. Mary had to figure it out on her own. A few days later, my Aunt Patricia called me. She was my mother's sister, the only person on that side of the family I still talk to. You need to hear this, she said. Your mother and father got into it last night. Bad. About what? I asked. Mary, your father wanted to let her move back in. Your mother said no. It got heated. Let me guess, I said. Dad got his way. That is the thing, Aunt Patricia said. He did not. Your mother stood her ground. She told your father, you are not bringing her here. Flat out. Not a discussion. What did Dad say? He pulled his usual nonsense. She is our daughter. She has nowhere to go. Your mother fired right back. She said, then she should have thought about that before she moved into a dead man's house and destroyed it. I almost smiled. My mother had never talked to my father like that. Not once in 30 years. And Dad? I asked. He tried the old routine. She is going through a difficult time. Your mother lost it. She said, my God, Thomas, are you listening to yourself? She has been going through a difficult time her entire life. And you have made it everyone else's problem. Aunt Patricia paused. Then she said something that I do not think your father will ever forget. What? She said, I lost my sons because of her. I lost Mason. I lost Austin. Because of her and because of you. You chose her over them, every single time, and now she is the only one left. And you want to bring her back into this house? I was quiet. I could not picture it. My mother, standing up to my father. After everything. And Dad? I said. He tried to say he did not choose. She cut him off. She said, every time you bought her a new phone instead of asking Austin about his grades. Every time you defended her after she scratched Mason's car. Every time you told Mason to be more understanding while she was tearing this family apart. You chose her. And now look where we are. Then she told him that if he brought Mary back into that house, she would leave him. She said she was done watching him destroy this family for a girl who does not care about anyone but herself. What did Dad do? Nothing. He just sat there in his study, staring at the desk. Your mother walked out and slept in the guest room. They have not spoken since. I sat with that for a long moment. My mother, the woman who had spent her entire life giving in to whoever made the most noise, had finally stood up. Not for me. Not for Mason. For herself. Your mother is not a perfect woman, Austin, Aunt Patricia said. She made mistakes. A lot of them. But she finally woke up. Better late than never, I suppose. I suppose, I said. A few weeks later, Mary tried to break into Grampa's house. My house. It was a Saturday night. Danielle and I were asleep. The dog started barking at 2 in the morning. I got up, turned on the monitor, and saw her on the back porch. She was trying to pry open the kitchen window with a screwdriver. The same tool she used on Mason's car. I called the police. They arrived in 4 minutes. She was still trying to get in when they pulled into the driveway. The arrest made the local news. Former granddaughter of prominent family arrested for breaking and entering. My father's name was in the headline. His partners saw it. His clients saw it. Everyone saw it. They charged her with attempted breaking and entering, criminal trespass, and destruction of property. She had damaged the window frame and the porch railing during the attempt. Reginald represented me again. Mary had found a new lawyer, a short, portly man named Walsh who wore a wrinkled suit and carried a briefcase held together with tape. He was not Chase. He was not even close. He was the kind of lawyer you found when you could not afford anyone better. It went to trial. The courtroom was packed. My mother was there. My father was there. Mason was there. Even Aunt Patricia showed up. Reginald had told me beforehand that Walsh had a reputation for cutting corners and overpromising to clients. He said it would not matter. He was right. Walsh made his opening argument first. Your Honor, he said, my client made a mistake. A poor judgment call driven by grief and desperation. She lost her grandfather. She lost her home. She lost everything. In a moment of emotional distress, she went to the only place that ever felt like home. This is not a crime. This is a tragedy. Reginald stood up. Your Honor, the defense would have you believe that a 30-year-old woman, carrying a screwdriver and a crowbar, attempting to break into a home at 2 o'clock in the morning, was acting out of grief. Grief does not pack tools. Grief does not wait until the homeowners are asleep. Grief does not pry open windows. This was not a moment of weakness. This was a calculated attempt to trespass and occupy a property that does not belong to her. The same property she was already evicted from by court order. Walsh objected. Counsel is characterizing my client's intentions without evidence. The judge waved him off. Overruled. Continue. Walsh sat down. He did not object again during Reginald's statement. He should have. Reginald was walking right up to the line, and Walsh did not even stand up. Reginald called me to the stand first. Mr. Davenport, he said, can you describe what you saw on the night of the incident? I was asleep. The dog woke me up. I checked the security monitor and saw Mary on my back porch. She was trying to pry open the kitchen window with a screwdriver. Did you recognize her immediately? Yes. It was 2 in the morning. She was alone. She had a bag with her. I could see a crowbar sticking out of it. What did you do? I called the police. They arrived in 4 minutes. She was still trying to get in when they arrived. How long had she been on the property before you called? Based on the camera footage, approximately 12 minutes. Walsh cross-examined me. Mr. Davenport, is it not true that your sister was in a state of emotional distress at the time of this incident? I do not know her emotional state. You know that she had just been evicted from your grandfather's house. You know that her marriage had fallen apart. You know that her husband was in rehab. You know that her mother refused to take her in. I know all of that, I said, and none of it gives her the right to break into my house. Walsh moved on. Mr. Davenport, did your sister ever ask you for help? No. Did she ever call you, text you, or reach out in any way before this incident? Not that I am aware of. So she went straight to breaking in without attempting any other option? I do not know what she attempted. I know what she did. She showed up at my house at 2 in the morning with tools. Walsh paused. He flipped through his notes. Then he asked, Mr. Davenport, is it not true that you and your sister have a history of conflict going back to childhood? Reginald stood. Objection. Relevance. The judge nodded. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Walsh. Walsh nodded and shuffled his papers. He had just opened a door he did not need to open. Reginald made a note. The judge called a 15-minute recess. When we came back, Reginald called the arresting officer, a sergeant named David Morales. Sergeant Morales, Reginald said, can you describe the scene when you arrived? We received the call at 2:07 a.m. We arrived at 2:11. The suspect was on the back porch. She was actively attempting to force open a window with a pry bar. She had a bag containing a screwdriver, a crowbar, a flashlight, and a change of clothes. A change of clothes, Reginald repeated. She brought a change of clothes. Yes, sir. It appeared she planned to stay. Walsh objected. The officer is speculating on my client's intentions. The judge nodded. Sustained. The jury will disregard the officer's last statement. Reginald nodded. Did the suspect resist arrest? No, sir. She was cooperative. But she was vocal. She kept saying, this is my grandfather's house. I have a right to be here. Did she present any identification showing ownership of the property? No, sir. She had no documentation of any kind. Walsh did not object. He should have. Mary's own words were being used against her, and he let them in without a fight. Reginald then called a forensic analyst who had reviewed the security camera footage. The analyst walked the court through the footage, timestamp by timestamp. At 1:48 a.m., Mary was seen walking up the side of the house with a bag. At 1:51 a.m., she was on the back porch, examining the window frame. At 1:53 a.m., she pulled the screwdriver from her bag and began prying at the lock. At 1:56 a.m., she switched to the crowbar when the screwdriver was not working. At 2:07 a.m., The police lights appeared in the driveway. The footage was played in the courtroom. Everyone watched Mary methodically work on that window. It was not emotional. It was not desperate. It was patient, calculated, like she had done it before. Walsh called Mary to the stand. "Mary," Walsh said, "can you tell the court what happened that night?" Mary looked fragile. She had lost weight. Her eyes were red. "Your Honor," she said, "I was in a bad place. My marriage had fallen apart. My husband was in rehab. My mother would not let me come home. I had nowhere to go. I drove around for hours, and I ended up at Grandpa's house. I was not thinking clearly. I just wanted to feel like I was somewhere safe." She paused. "I know what I did was wrong. I know I should not have been there. But I was desperate. I had nothing left." Walsh nodded. "And the tools in your bag?" Mary looked down. "I do not know why I brought them. I think part of me thought I could get in and just stay for a little while. I was not going to steal anything. I was not going to hurt anyone. I just wanted to be somewhere that felt like home." Walsh could have stopped there. He should have stopped there. Instead, he said, "Mary, tell the court about your relationship with your grandfather. How close were you?" Mary shifted. "We were close. He was like a father to me. Better than my actual father, sometimes." Walsh nodded, satisfied. He did not realize he had just handed Reginald the rope. Reginald stood up for cross-examination. "Mrs. Lucas," he said, "you just told this court that you were desperate and had nowhere to go. Is that correct?" "Yes. Nowhere to go. No options. No alternatives." "Is that what you were telling this court?" "Yes." Reginald pulled out a document. "I would like to submit evidence. This is a log of Mrs. Lucas's phone records from the week leading up to the incident. It shows that she made a total of 1 phone call during that week. 1. And it was not to her mother. It was not to her brother. It was not to any family member. It was to a friend named Bethany Collins, lasting 4 minutes." He turned to Mary. "You said you had nowhere to go. Did you call your mother?" Mary hesitated. "No." "Did you call your brother?" "No." "Did you call your brother, a man who owns multiple properties and has the resources to help you?" "No." "Did you attempt to contact any family member before showing up at Mr. Davenport's house at 2 in the morning?" "No." "So instead of picking up the phone, you packed a bag with tools and drove to a house you had been legally evicted from." "I was not thinking clearly." "You were thinking clearly enough to wait until 2 a.m., Reginald said. "You were thinking clearly enough to bring a screwdriver and a crowbar. You were thinking clearly enough to try the window quietly so you would not wake the homeowners." "That sounds like thinking to me, Mrs. Lucas." "It sounds like planning." Walsh objected. "Counsel is testifying." The judge nodded. "Sustained." "Rephrase." Reginald paused. "Mrs. Lucas, you said this house felt like home. But it is not your home. Your grandfather left it to Austin. Not to you. You were told this by a judge. You were given 3 days to leave. You left. And then you came back with tools in the middle of the night. Why?" Mary's voice cracked. "Because it was not fair." "What was not fair?" "That he got everything. The house. The money. The company. Grandpa loved him more. He always loved Austin more. And now Austin has everything, and I have nothing." Reginald nodded. "So this was not about grief. This was not about feeling safe. This was about jealousy." Walsh should have objected. Reginald was characterizing Mary's own words. But Walsh was looking down at his notes, and by the time he looked up, Reginald had already moved on. He paused. "And for the record, Mrs. Lucas, your brother did not receive a company from your grandfather. He built Dawson Technologies himself. From nothing. With no help from anyone in this family. Your grandfather left him a house and some savings. The company was all Austin." Mary said nothing. Walsh objected. The judge overruled. "Answer the question, Mrs. Lucas." Mary looked at the floor. "I do not know." "You do not know?" Reginald repeated. "Let me help you. You were evicted from a house. Your marriage fell apart. Your husband is in rehab. Your mother will not take you in. And instead of taking responsibility for any of that, you decided to break into the one place that does not belong to you and take what you think you deserve." Mary said nothing. Reginald turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the defense claims this was a crime of desperation, but the evidence shows otherwise. The defendant packed tools. She waited until the middle of the night. She bypassed the front door and went to the back of the house. She attempted to pry open a window. She brought a change of clothes. This was not desperation. This was a plan. And when you combine this with the defendant's history, a history of destruction, of entitlement, of violating the rights of others, the pattern becomes clear." He held up a folder. "Your Honor, I would like to submit into evidence the defendant's prior record. a civil judgment for destruction of property involving her brother's car, a probate court order evicting her from this same property, and the original court filing from the car incident, where her own grandfather's attorney wrote a letter stating that the defendant needed consequences, and that without them, she would end up in jail. He looked at Mary. Your grandfather predicted this. He told your father, if you do not get her help, she is going to end up in jail. He was right. The courtroom was silent. The judge called for closing arguments. Walsh stood first. Your Honor, members of the jury, he said, my client is not a criminal. She is a young woman who lost her grandfather, lost her home, and lost her way. She made a mistake, a serious one, but a mistake born out of desperation, not malice. I ask you to consider the full picture, the grief, the loss, the isolation, and I ask you to find her not guilty. He sat down. It was short. It was thin. He had not addressed the tools, the footage, or the prior record. Reginald had noticed. Reginald stood. Members of the jury, the defense wants you to feel sorry for my client's sister. They want you to believe that grief justifies breaking into someone's home at 2 in the morning with tools. But ask yourself this. If it were anyone else, if a stranger showed up at your house at 2 in the morning with a screwdriver and a crowbar, would you call it grief? Or would you call it what it is? A crime. The fact that she is family does not change the law. The fact that she is grieving does not give her the right to break in. But this is not just about one night. This is about a pattern that goes back to when the defendant was 12 years old and took a screwdriver to her brother's car because she did not get a car for her birthday. Her own grandfather, Archie Dawson, stood in that courtroom and told her father, if you do not get her help, she is going to end up in jail. He was right. That letter from Grampa Dawson's attorney, written 2 months before he passed, predicted exactly this. He knew what was coming. He tried to prevent it. No one listened. The defendant was evicted from Mr. Davenport's property by court order. She was given 3 days to leave. She left, and then she came back. She did not come back with tears. She came back with a bag, a screwdriver, a crowbar, a change of clothes. She came back at 2 in the morning, when she thought no one would be awake. She went to the back of the house. She tried the window quietly. She switched tools when one did not work. That is not grief. That is not desperation. That is a plan. Look at the footage. Watch her walk up the side of the house. Watch her examine the window frame. Watch her work. She is calm. She is patient. She is methodical. She has done this before. And when you look at her history, you see the same thing. A 12-year-old who destroyed her brother's car and felt nothing. A young woman who moved into her dead grandfather's house without permission and damaged the property. A defendant who told this court, under oath, that she took care of her grandfather, when in reality, he was paying a home care service to do it while she was in Cancun. She lied. To Chase. To this court. To everyone. The evidence is clear. The footage is clear. The history is clear. She is guilty. Hold her accountable. The judge sent the jury to deliberate. They were out for 2 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood. He was a middle-aged man in a blue shirt. He would not look at Mary. On the charge of attempted breaking and entering, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of criminal trespass, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of destruction of property, we find the defendant guilty. Mary's face crumbled. Walsh put his hand on her shoulder. My mother was crying in the gallery. My father stared straight ahead, his face like stone. The judge sentenced her the next morning. 1 year in county jail. Full term. No early release. Mary stood in the courtroom in handcuffs. She looked small. She looked like the 12-year-old who had thrown a tantrum over a car. Except this time, there was no one to buy her a new phone to make her stop. 1 year. No job. No home. Just a jail cell and the consequences she had been running from her entire life. I left the courtroom. I walked out the front doors, past the reporters, past the cameras. I got in my car and drove to the office. I did not want to be there when they brought her out in handcuffs. Mason called me that night. He had stayed behind. He told me what happened after I left. After the sentencing, Dad went straight to the car. Mom followed. They got in and Dad just sat there with his hands on the wheel, not starting the engine. Mom looked at him and said, Thomas, she is gone. Our daughter is gone. And you did this. Not Austin. You. You gave her everything she wanted and never taught her how to earn anything. And now she is in a jail cell because neither of us had the guts to say no. Mason paused. Dad did not say anything. Mom opened the door and got out. Dad started the car and drove off without her. She stood in the parking lot. She did not cry this time. She just stood there. I walked up to her, and she looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. She said, "Mason, I am sorry. For everything. For you. For Austin. For all of it." "What did you say?" I said I appreciated that. And then I asked if she needed a ride. She said no. She called a cab. Mason was quiet for a second. "She is staying in a motel." Dad went to the house alone. She told Aunt Patricia she is not going back. I stared at the phone. My mother, the woman who spent her entire life choosing whoever made the most noise, was standing in a parking lot while my father drove away without her. She stood up when it mattered, but she stood up 20 years too late. And the damage was done. Mason was grown. I was grown. Mary was in jail. The house was empty. The family was scattered. "That is where they are," Mason said. "I thought you should know." I thanked him. We hung up. I went home. Danielle was waiting up for me. She took one look at my face and knew. She held me while I cried. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She was just there. I heard that Josh got out of rehab and is working at a small clinic in another state. He does not talk to anyone from the family. Good. He was just like Mary. Entitled. Arrogant. He called me a freeloader to my face, threw the first punch, and lied under oath about still having his job at the hospital. He married Mary because he saw the same thing she saw in our family, someone to take from. He thought marrying into the Davenports would give him connections, status, a fast track. He was wrong. Instead, he got a wife who expected him to provide everything while she contributed nothing, a father-in-law who retired in disgrace, and a criminal record for lying in court. He drank his way through it, lost his job for real this time, and ended up in rehab. Now he is stitching up cuts in a small clinic in a town nobody has heard of, trying to piece together a life that he destroyed on his own. He was not a victim. He was Mary in a different body. And he is exactly where people like that end up. As for me, I am still running Dawson Technologies. We are worth $2 billion now, and we are still growing. We have expanded into artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and cloud computing. I have got offices in 6 countries and over 1,000 employees. I am still the same person I have always been, just with more responsibility and more zeros in my bank account. Danielle and I are expecting our first child. It is a boy. We are going to name him Archie, after Grandpa. Danielle says she wants him to have Grandpa's middle name too. Archie Thomas Davenport. I like the sound of it. We have been decorating the nursery. Danielle picked out a theme, something with animals and trees. I built the crib myself, with Grandpa's old tools. It took me 3 weekends, and I had to redo it twice, but it is perfect. Danielle cried when she saw it. Happy tears. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that day in my father's study, when he tried to withhold my college fund. I think about what would have happened if Grandpa had not been there. Would I have become a lawyer? A doctor? Would I have been miserable for the rest of my life? I do not know. What I do know is that I made my own choices. I chose to study computer programming. I chose to start my own company. I chose to marry Danielle. I chose to say no to my family when they tried to drag me down. And I chose to punch Josh in the mouth. I do not regret that one at all. My name is Austin Davenport. I am 30 years old. I am a CEO, a husband, and soon to be a father. I built my empire from nothing, and I did it without my family's support. And if you are listening to this, and you are in a similar situation, I want you to know something. You do not owe anyone anything. Not your parents, not your siblings, not your in-laws. You owe yourself the chance to be happy. Do not let anyone take that from you. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can build your life is you. And if the people who are supposed to love you are the ones holding you back, then maybe it is time to walk away. I walked away, and I have never looked back.